Welcome back. This is the morning show. Now, a heartbreaking discovery was made just last Friday of a fully formed fetus in the waste management system of Flysafair plane. Durban police are currently investigating a case of concealment of birth, with Flysafair also conducting an investigation into how the abandoned fetus got there. Now, although we cannot quite speculate on an ongoing investigation, it does bring to light what is an ongoing issue in South Africa in society of mothers who abandon their babies. As such, we welcome clinical psychologist Kathy Angus, as well as children's rights activist who has done investigative research on this topic. Robin joins us. Robin Wolfson Forster. Thank you so much, ladies, for your time. Welcome.
Pleasure.
Kathy, let me start with you. I mean, this is obviously an ongoing investigation, currently by Flysafair as well as the Durban police. But how rife or how prevalent is such, cases of child or baby's abandonment in South Africa?
I don't know that I'm the one to answer that one, because I don't have the figures on that. I don't know if you have figures on that, Robin?
Yes, actually, one of the problems about abandonment is that unfortunately we don't have recent statistics on this problem. So while we do have some fairly elderly research, it's about 10 years old now, and we can tell you that probably about 3,500 children were abandoned and found alive in 2010. Now, the important thing about that is that those were children that were found alive in the space of a year. What we also know, based on mortuary evidence and other evidence from Gauteng, for example, is that probably for every one child that survives, 2 children die. So we're talking about an enormously big problem in South Africa, and largely an under-discussed and an under-strategized problem, if I can put it that way.
And I think for me, Kathy, I also want to understand in what state of mind could the mother potentially be in for them to make such a decision?
It's a very difficult decision for any woman to make, and I think that makes it harder than one can even begin to imagine unless you've done it yourself. But, it's a matter of trying to deal with something that is a reality, but you don't want it to be a reality at all, because it's something that you want to get away from. People want to avoid it, but there are so many reasons why they don't avoid it. If we just think of the case in question right now, there's the difficulty of what do I do as a woman who has just given birth on an aeroplane.
Absolutely.
It's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And there's so many factors that come into play in that situation.
Right. But Robin, how does the South African law sort of define, child abandonment, and what are the consequences for that?
Well, this is also part of the problem with dealing with child abandonment in South Africa, because child abandonment is illegal under any circumstances. So whether it's a safe abandonment or an unsafe abandonment, it is still, according to the law, a crime. And that's part of our problem in South Africa, because we know that child abandonment is rife based on those statistics. We know that if we look at Medical Research Council research on deaths of small infants in this country, they will say that children are most likely to die an unnatural death in the first 6 days of life. So given that the problem is so big, we have a question about why it is that our law hasn't been addressed. So we don't have a situation where a mother who is in this invidious position where, for whatever reason, the baby might have been conceived through rape or incest. We might have a situation where the mother herself has been abandoned by the father, by family members, or alternatively where she's just too poor to be able to deal with this child. And now she's in a situation where she would like to be able to place this child safely, but she doesn't have the option of going and placing the baby safely. And that is part of our concern, is that more children are dying than need to be dying, because mothers don't feel that they've got an option to be able to take care of those children.
And Kathy, I suppose with that said, what should be society's response? Because like you said, I mean, whether it's done, there's no legal way of abandoning a child. It's illegal in South Africa. What should then society's response be to child abandonment, at least towards the mother? Should it be lock her up and throw away the keys kind of attitude, or should there be a better understanding, as Robin is explaining, what could potentially be some of the causes?
Yeah, I think absolutely not is what you don't want to be throwing away the keys and saying she needs to be helped. She needs to be given support, she needs to be given guidance. so that there is something that is there behind her, and that she's not alone in a situation.
And what guides a mother to make such a decision? Because, I mean, we've covered so many of these cases, such as, you know, children being left in pipes, storage pipes, some in, you know, in the wild, some on the road, in plastic bags. Even though there are organizations such as the Door of Hope that are there to assist mothers to give their child, you know, a chance at life and not, you know, put them in such circumstances, why do they still go through, you know, such situations where they perhaps have to give birth to a fully formed fetus on a plane, do you think?
Well, it's an interesting one, this, that she gave birth to a fully formed fetus,
Yeah.
because I didn't think you were allowed to fly when, you know, after so many weeks on a plane. So I'm not sure why she was in that kind of situation, but given that she was, one still has to give her the support and the backup.
Yeah. Let me bring it back to you, Robin. I suppose I want to talk about, you know, the cases that you've also have encountered. I mean, in terms of, you know, child abandonment in South Africa. What's the response rate like to cases like these? I remember there was one incident where we saw rescuers spending hours on hours, and thankfully, you know, a child then survived. But what are the responses rate like, and also the chances of a baby surviving in such a situation?
Well, if you think about the babies that are going to be abandoned, they're at their most vulnerable. And I mean, particularly we're talking about winter now. You know, often children will die of exposure very quickly. And in many cases, it's not because the mother intended for them to die. It's just because she made a desperate decision and left a baby somewhere. And you mentioned Door of Hope earlier. There are baby savers across South Africa where mothers can safely abandon. But unfortunately, because, as I mentioned earlier, they are illegal, we don't have enough evidence to be able to say mothers actually know that they've got an option to be able to place a baby safely. So unfortunately, what we're looking at is many cases where children just don't have a chance of survival. So what we need to do as a society is we need to look at what our law says regarding child abandonment, and we need to thoroughly think about whether we are trying to save these children's lives. And if we are, then there are actually very easy things that can be done. For example, changing the illegal status of child abandonment. We could make unsafe abandonment a crime, but make safe abandonment something which is accessible to mothers. And many countries across the world have got safe haven laws where mothers can abandon anonymously in places like police stations or in hospitals, and they don't have to leave their details. So in fact, we have ways of saving lives if we choose to.
Absolutely, and I hope social development as a department can do more to assist us. But thank you so much, Kathy and Robin, for your time. I appreciate you coming to the show.
Thanks, Tamela.
All right then, well, Kathy and Robin, just shedding more light on this very tragic issue of child abandonment in South Africa. And indeed it is winter time, and it's so disheartening to even hear any story close to this about child abandonment. But, you know, let's do as much as we can as a country, and also appeal to our government to assist mothers in distress and in need of assistance during this time.